After releasing 3 mini-albums from 2014 to 2016, BAND-MAID finally went ahead and, on January 11, 2017, released their first full-length studio album, Just Bring It. Not only does this include more tracks, obviously, but it can clearly be heard throughout the whole album that they are really diving into the full hard rock side of things. Most of the tracks here have layers upon layers of noise, to the point where it takes multiple listens just to decipher what is going on. It's outstanding how far they've come in such a short amount of time, so let's jump straight into it and dissect just how awesome their first full-length album truly is. The opening track of the album is Don't You Tell Me, and it gets right into it. The album is already off to a fantastic start here. Everyone is very strong during the opening few seconds, but the intensity picks up ever so slightly when Akane takes the briefest of pauses during it. Akane's drum pattern during the ending of this is really catchy, making for a hell of a beginning segment. Once Saiki comes in, Misa becomes a prominent figure for about the next 10 seconds or so. It's a very solid bass line, easy to groove along with whilst everyone else is jamming out. Misa then fades away, and the next part is a bunch of squeaking noise coming from someone. That noise eventually stops and we start the build up to the chorus. A really clean sound where everyone is on equal footing throughout it. Akane does have a really nice drum pattern before entering the chorus though, so props to that. There honestly isn't too much to the chorus, but this doesn't mean that it's bad at all. From there we jump right into the second verse, no downtime at all. I love it. It keeps up that fast pace that we've established at the beginning of the track. This verse sounds exactly the same to me as the first one, with the only difference being that Akane doesn't put the divide between Misa's part and the squeaking noise. Instead, it's the two guitarists and the bassist that does it. So it's not 100% the same, which is nice. They're trying to change it up, even if it's something that's barely noticeable. Also, this time around, no cool Akane pattern to get us into the chorus. Instead, it's a very striking sound from everyone else, which tells us, hey, this is the chorus. Second chorus, it's the same as the first one, no surprise there, but I really do love how the video is for the beginning of this chorus. It's really cute. As with any BAND-MAID song, up next is the awesome instrumental section. This one isn't very long, it's not as hype as I thought it would be, but it's still really consistent with the rest of the track. It begins with Kanami wailing on her guitar, holding a note seemingly forever, before picking up her strumming speed. With her doing that, Akane comes into the fold and does a few strikes, and she continues with the cymbals as well while Kanami carries on as both of them are picking up speed before Saiki comes back in to lead us up into the final chorus and into the finale of the song. Puzzle is the second track off of the album, and this one really starts to show the hard rock sound, as we are thrust right into the sound. Even though this is really nicely balanced between everyone to start off with, I always point out Misa here, since I love hearing her and my ears immediately gravitate toward her sound. The main thing about this section though is Kanami's solo. I know I just pointed out Misa, but Kanami is obviously the star. It's so unexpected, and I love them mixing up the formula like this. The solo is really good alongside everyone else keeping the same sound while transitioning so perfectly, catching me off guard as Kanami goes off on her own. Saiki eventually enters the fray and the song gets dialed back a bit, with the main thing being the drums, at least for the first 15 seconds or so, since everyone else is doing a really light stuff compared to before. That all changes though when someone does a slide, signifying that we're going back to the hard-hitting stuff. It's so awesome to listen to this very rough sound coming from Kanami alongside Akane backing her up so nicely. We once again get a really awesome drum pattern from Akane, plus this time around, there's a slight pause before we enter the first chorus. Everything about the chorus is so awesome. Saiki's way of singing at the beginning, which makes it really easy to bop along with. On top of that, Miku's crushing it with her vocals, holding on to notes for an amazingly long time, adding this awesome dynamic alongside Saiki. Even then, you've got Akane absolutely dominating her drum kit, giving us an explosive energy that is almost too much, but it rides that line beautifully. Both Kanami and Misa blend in beautifully with all of this, that it almost seems like they aren't even playing. But even still, Kanami is still giving that rough sound that she was giving us during the opening bit, and I love to see it. This chorus ends with an amazing solo from Kanami. It's insane how awesome it sounds and how much I love it, despite it only being about 15 seconds long. The second verse continues with Kanami plucking away with only a few notes, very distant in the background, with Akane continuing to blast away. But the star is once again Misa, pandering to my love of staccato notes by doing them over and over again for the first half of this verse. The second half is dominated by Kanami strumming her way into the spotlight like always, but Misa is still doing her damnedest to get that spotlight away from her, whilst Akane is still doing the same thing she's been doing the entire track. All of them continue to blast away until it's time to hit the chorus once again, and this time around we get the tried and true slide from Misa instead of an Akane pattern, which introduces us into the second chorus. Now we'll get into the final solo. The real solo, as I'll call it. It starts off strong with Misa getting her own section. I love hearing her get her own solo, already a perfect start. Kanami then enters in with a slide, asserting her dominance over this section and starts to take over. Her strumming power during this is simply out of this world. She strums really fast. It's incredible to witness, even if it's just a recording on my computer. But then she takes it up a gear, giving this wailing of a note that sounds so epic as the entire sound of her guitar changes in an instant. It's so fucking awesome to hear. The solo ends once again with that awesome wailing note as Saiki once again enters back in to signify the end of it. Before getting to the finale of this song, we get an awesome build-up with a very subtle play from everyone as it slowly builds and builds, especially after the first slide here. Misa's playing her heart out during all of this, and Akane somehow goes even harder after the first slide. I honestly can't believe it. It somehow gets even better though, because right before it's about to blow off into the final chorus, there's a pause, followed by this epic slide that gets me so hyped to hear the end of this track. What a great follow-up track to Don't You Tell Me. Hell, if anything, this works just as well as an opening track, so both really do complement each other nicely. Next on the track list is Moratorium, and just like Puzzle, this starts super hard and super fast, giving us an incredible riff for the opening seconds until Miku comes in with, and the band slows down, barely though, before blasting into the same high tempo part they were playing just before. Akane is so present during this section until Saiki comes in that it's honestly hard to even try to talk about the others since she owns it so much. once Psyche does decide to join in, the sound becomes really beautiful with all these sharp strikes from Akane, with the guitar just holding on to a single note. They do that, then jump back into the earlier sound before jumping back to the hard striking section that I loved so much beforehand. Another pattern then shows its face when everyone sorta goes down a scale before they do some nice riffs, before rinsing and repeating this a few times until they decide to go into the chorus. The chorus hits me in all the right spots with so much happening at once that I start to feel overwhelmed when attempting to dissect exactly what's going on here. Misa is once again, in my opinion, the star here, as she stands out the most of anyone in this whole chorus, even though it's a very short chorus. Her part blows me away since I love that nice low sound that the bass produces, and it's usually really hard to hear since it's supposed to be the foundation of the sound, not the main part, but I love it either way. Kanami has a really good part here as well, especially with the really sharp notes that come out of nowhere, but it's the best thing about the chorus for sure. Once the chorus comes to a close, they go back to the beginning noise that they made once Miku entered with her English words, leading right into verse 2. Verse 2 begins really nicely with Kanami wailing on her guitar while Misa plays the bass in that same awesome fashion she's been doing really for the whole album so far. Followed by the same verse pattern sound from the initial verse, Kanami is doing things with her guitar in such an awesome way that any words I try to write down for this will 100% not do it justice. So instead, I'm just gonna let you listen to it. Then we enter the second pattern for this verse, and this section is essentially an excuse for Misa to just jam out. It's as if she was just jamming out one day and decided, yeah, we can fit this into a track somehow, and I absolutely love every goddamn second of it. This leads into chorus 2, but this time around, there is a difference, and that's the fact that Miku does some epic O's, whilst everyone continues doing the same normal chorus sound, and both of them together are just so beautiful to hear. From there, we start the fabled build-up, with the pace slowing down considerably. The riff that everyone is doing is this heavy sound that gets you excited because you know something awesome is about to happen. And sure enough, Kanami does in fact do something that's really awesome, hitting it out of the park once again during this, whilst Miku and Misa continue on with that heavy sound, adding on to an already awesome segment. The nice high-pitched sound from Kanami just blends so nicely with the contrasting sound of the other two, a perfect combination for an instrumental section. Very slow segment here where the O's come back in and the sound really isn't doing much, which lets us focus on the vocalists, and that's a good thing, because I love hearing Psyche and Miku so much. The song honestly has such a different vibe now that it sounds like a completely different song to me, but after this it's right back into the chorus part, which they do twice before getting into the closing section. Next up is the only single off of the album, YOLO, and this one is probably the easiest one to dissect out of any of the songs I've dissected so far, because for some reason, they gave us an instrumental version of this track on the single release, at least on Spotify. The track opens up very differently from the last three tracks, by having a very nice slow build being played over them before the band themselves just blast right into it again. And once again, Akane is the first one to attract my attention with her awesome drum play, but Misa and Kanami do get their parts in really nicely. Misa with a very quick slide that's very easy to miss, and Kanami gets a few chords to strum on her own before Saiki comes in. Everything from when Saiki comes in until Akane starts to ramp it up closer to the chorus sounds so unified that it's almost hypnotic. Usually there's something that stands out, but here, there's nothing that really stands out. Akane increases the speed of her drumming ever so slightly, telling the members to now go do their own thing, and it does really sound nice. It's nothing too hype, but it's not something that's going to put me to sleep either. Misa's bassline alone would keep me awake, but there's also this very distant sound that's always popping up to clash with the low droning sound of the bass, whilst you have that middle ground there with Miku and Kanami. I also love Saiki's voice. It's super hard to explain why I love her voice, but it's just really easy to listen to. Everyone mixes in perfectly with each other during the chorus here. Sure, the guitarists are the prominent figure during this, but that's usually the case with most songs. It's the fact that Misa rounds out the sound so perfectly that there would be a gap here if she was just gone. And of course, I can't forget about the drumming queen back there, who's always working really hard, giving us a nice drumming pattern, but keeping a nice solid pace for everyone to follow. There is no break in the song, it just jumps right into verse 2, and the sound is 100% different from the first one, and I love that so much. The first section is just an excuse for Misa to show how awesome she is. She gets the spotlight here while Kanami kinda takes a back seat, and Miku's not even playing, so this just gives Misa even more time to show what she can really do. Misa ends her part by going down the scale, and it's honestly my favorite thing in this segment, which is very bold of me to say considering what Kanami is about to do. Kanami does staccato-like sections where she's doing the same thing over and over again until the very end where she just signs out with a powerful slide. You then get into the section where Kanami just holds the note, brings the note up, and Misa just starts strumming so quickly before they jump back into the pre-chorus sound. But wait a minute, what did Saiki just say there? Jibun wo? Well, moving on from that, we can go right into the instrumental section, and the beginning of it has this very nice unified sound that was present earlier, but then someone just goes off on their own very briefly before repeating this pattern a few more times before Kanami decides enough is enough and just gets right into it with an awesome solo. Even though it stands out, it also kinda doesn't stand out as the other members are trying just as hard, even though they're not as loud. Akane goes really hard at the end of this, but doesn't overpower Kanami here. After rocking out, the slow section starts where we get to enjoy Saiki singing for us, before we get into the final part of the song. The drumming during this is really cool. I love the full sound that comes from it. The guitar playing is also phenomenal, I can't get enough of it. The finale here is amazing, especially in the video, because they just look like they're having so much fun, and it just brings a smile to my face every time. I really like Miku's vocals here towards the end, since I really couldn't hear her throughout the entire song. But here, she really does shine and is a nice contrast to Psyche. Before we continue on talking about each song, I now want to go over the production behind this album. It was actually released on 2 separate days, the 11th of January 2017 in Japan, and then an entire month later internationally, with it reaching number 16 on the Japanese Oricon Weekly Albums chart. Now, I always had this assumption that once they released BAND-MAID and Alone, that they had made every single song from that point forward on their own, but that's not entirely the case. 2 tracks off of this album, OOPARTS and So What, were not made by them at all. They did nothing on those tracks, which is very reminiscent of their earlier albums. I am glad though that a vast majority of the songs were made by them, as you can tell the direction they wanted to go with their sound. I was also able to find exactly 1 interview from Metia, where they go over some of the making of the album, which is awesome. I'll get into it a bit more later when I get to the specific songs, but the interview does mention their favorite songs off of the album. Psyche's is Don't You Tell Me, Miku's is Time, which is hilarious given that that's the Miku only song. Misa's favorite is Awkward, since she and Kanami made that one on their own. Kanami enjoys Decided by Myself, and Akane loves Secret My Lips. It's just really cool to know which songs they enjoy the most and see if my tastes are the same as theirs. I'm gonna go briefly over the next 4 songs, since I don't have a lot to say about them, even though they're really good songs on their own. Track number 5 is Cross, and this sounds like something that was designed for an anime opening or an anime ending. I honestly don't know how to describe what I mean by that, but it just kind of has that feeling that I associate with an anime opening or an anime ending. The chorus is solid as hell, very catchy to listen to, with the music blending in perfectly with Psyche's amazing vocals, to the point where I'm just lost listening to it. Not to mention the ending of the chorus, where you just get all the O's from Miku. There's also a part towards the end I find interesting, where Psyche comes in seemingly at the wrong time, but no, that's when she's supposed to come in. It just sounds really weird to me. The ending is just O's again, but it's so beautiful, especially when Psyche chimes in at the end of it, solidifying the perfection and the beauty of it all. OOPARTS is the next track, and I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. It's either OOPARTS or OOPARTS. But this track is a callback to Made in Japan, since it sounds very similar to those tracks, and Miku even confirmed it during the interview I mentioned earlier. I adore this opening bit. Drums are awesome with Psyche and Miku trading the vocals back and forth. I love it when stuff like that happens with multiple vocalists. The chorus does bring back the rock sound that has been happening throughout the entire album, but it's nowhere near as hard, but that's totally fine with me. Every track shouldn't be a very hard rock sound. Kanami's solo is amazing, mostly for the entry and the exit to it. I can't really describe it, so just listen to it for yourselves. Solid as hell song, really shows what they could have done with the songs in the first album if they had just been given the opportunity to. I know they weren't ever going to be given the opportunity to, but I feel like this is them saying, hey, we could have made this back then if we were given the opportunity to. Take Me Higher comes next at number 7, and the opening to this song is pure hard rock and roll, with the drums and the wailing of the guitar coming in play, and Kanami holding on to that one note as Saiki enters in with her voice. Such a fabulous entry into a song. There's this awesome noise that happens at 35 seconds in that is just drugs to my ear. I'm not entirely sure if it's one of the members doing this or if it's just an added sound in post, but it's phenomenal either way. As verse 2 begins, Misa absolutely destroys everything by playing so loud. Sometimes it scares me because I'm not anticipating it. The song ends with the wailing cry of Kanami's guitar as I'm just begging for it to go on and on. Easily one of the best off of the album. So What is up next, and it starts off really strong with almost a funk-like noise. Once they hit the chorus though, it sounds like an entirely different song to me. I do like the small bit at the beginning of verse 2 where there's a pause, but Saiki continues to sing on anyway, and the rest of the sound reacts to her for a brief moment. It's so short, yet it's so captivating that it's hard to continue past that point in the song for me. Akane gives us the full thick sound from the drums once again to reset everything before Kanami just destroys it with her solo. The Miku only track is up next, Time, and by Miku only I mean Miku is the only vocalist on the track, no Saiki this time around. And this one is my favorite Miku only track. It starts off with a really nice riff. It's nothing too special, but it's very balanced between everyone and has that lighter side to it that's usually there during a Miku-led song. For the next while, everyone kind of just plays the same note over and over again, but it's still very catchy, and I can't help myself from bopping my head up and down to it. Things do begin to pick up though when it becomes a more staccato-like noise, with Misa giving a really nice bass line during it. Before shifting gears into the chorus, Misa gives us a cheeky little slide just to tell us, hey, the chorus is about to happen. The tempo then shoots up, giving us that excitement that I associate with BAND-MAID's song. The star here being Akane, without a doubt. Her drum play is so magnificent here that it takes me a while to figure out what everyone else is doing. The sound at the 55-second mark does change into something that's even easier to bop my head along to than the opening bit. The way that everyone sounds as if they are just playing the exact same note at the exact same time is mesmerizing to me. Definitely one of the best choruses off of the album. The verse 1 sound is brought back, but this time at a much faster tempo than earlier, and I'm here for that all day. But then, something that isn't standard is that we immediately just go into the solo, no build up. It doesn't last too long though, but her entry alone is so memorable that I don't really mind it that much at all. Miku then goes pretty much by herself on the vocals, with the members playing very little, giving us the opportunity to appreciate just how good Miku is at singing. A little ramp up plus a slide enters us into the final stage of the song, with pretty much the same verse sound as before, but the sequence before entering the final chorus is amazing. Great way to distinguish the different versions. You is up next, and this one is just so fucking good and so much happens during it that I'm not even going to try and speak about all of it and just highlight my favorite parts, because I'm not going to do the song justice and we don't have enough time to do that here. Starting right away, the O's are a nice way to hype us up for the impending track. We get Psyche to do some English words, Miku starts singing in just one of our ears, and this part is honestly hard for me to even get past since I love it so much. Not to mention as well, the backing sound is just perfect. Akane's strikes are just in that perfect rhythm, whilst Kanami and Misa are just right along Akane for a beautiful perfect sequence. The chorus just has a lot of energy with everyone playing really well, along with both vocalists seemingly giving it their all. The last bit I want to talk about is the entry into chorus 2, and it just brings a huge smile to my face since the notes and how they are played is just perfect in literally every way. Awkward is up next, and this starts off super light. This is one of the only songs I would say sounds 100% pretty, and it gets even better when Psyche comes in. Although she comes in during what seems like an awkward moment. I do really enjoy chorus 1. It has a really nice feel to it with Psyche going along in a nice rhythm. Very easy to just sit back and bop your head along with. The sound does start to feel more like a rock song once chorus 1 dies down, with Akane hitting every drum in her kit, giving an amazing sound that I will forever love, which is followed by Kanami giving us a nice, small riff before changing the sound of her guitar, but keeping the exact same riff. Just incredible work here, as they've not only managed to change from a light song to a rock song, but also keep it nice and condensed, getting right back into the light stuff quickly. Verse 2 starts off the same as verse 1, but at the minute 45 mark, the tempo picks up with Akane leading the way, along with Kanami and Misa not doing too much, but it is different from what they were doing before, and it sounds really good despite me not being able to put it into words. This time around as well, the second chorus does get changed up. Well, kind of. It's the same notes as before, they're just played slightly differently, but it keeps it in line with the shift that was happening during the second half of the verse. That awesome drum pattern hits us once again as Kanami gets ready for one hell of a solo section. She starts it off with a really rough, awesome sounding riff that just pierces the ears anytime I hear it. She then speeds up her strumming before she just starts to shred as if her life depends on it. I'm not really sure how they followed that up, but they did by going into the chorus and doing that awesome drum pattern again. The whole ending bit is one awesome love letter from Kanami, as she just shreds during the last 20 seconds, with Akane giving that same pattern multiple times. Honestly, this is probably my favorite track off of the entire album, as it hits nearly everything I love about a BAND-MAID song. Our penultimate track is Decided by Myself, and Kanami has said that she based the song off of the image of an anime ending melody, which is really abstract, but I understand entirely what she's saying. Super hard start from everyone, Kanami 100% being the standout person during it, but I do hear a few skills from Misa in there. And as soon as Saiki comes in, yeah, this does sound like something straight out of an anime ending. The pre-chorus is very light when compared to that opening bit. Really, the whole first section was light, which is a shame. I wanted that same hard rock sound to stay. Verse 2 has a section in it where Akane stops entirely, and with Kanami playing on the lighter side, it gives Misa time to step in once again, which I'm a huge fan of. Not to mention, we get to indulge in Saiki's beautiful voice, so a perfect segment. Saiki throws in an right at the end of chorus 2 before heading into the awesome solo section from Kanami. It harkens back to the opening sound with that very rough hard rock that I loved from it, and she blasts away with that in mind, the riff here being phenomenal. As Saiki has this wonderful echo-like filter over her voice once Kanami is done, the way Saiki is saying the lines at the end of this track is very mesmerizing. Nonetheless, a really good ending to a great penultimate track. The final track is Secret My Lips. And I'm going to be honest here, I really don't listen to this one, as I love the Maiko version so much more, but that's a topic for another day. Akane says she stuffed this one with a lot of different drumming patterns. That way us listeners wouldn't get tired of it even after listening to it multiple times. The track starts off mostly with an awesome rough riff from Kanami, with Misa getting into the fray every now and then, trying to pry some of that spotlight away from Kanami. The drums start to pick up just before Saiki comes in, and Saiki once again has this amazing filter over her voice, making it sound like she's coming out of an old-time radio. The other instruments start doing the staccato pattern again, with Akane just continuing doing what she does best, keeping the rhythm flowing beautifully. Misa gives a really nice strumming pattern at the 45-second mark that's really hard to notice, but once I heard it, it's something I always look forward to hearing. The drums before entering the first chorus get me super excited for what's coming up next, and I live for the hype. The overpowering sound of Kanami alone gets me to fall in love with this chorus. But Psyche is doing a damn good job to get my attention away from the awesomeness that Kanami is pouring out. Akane's stuff is really subtle, but still she's doing an awesome job here. Akane once again shines by doing some amazing work before entering verse 2 with some really powerful machine gun pedaling here, along with her usual drumming that she's been doing throughout the entire song. They go into the same sound from the first verse, but they do spice it up a little bit by throwing in a pause, and Misa's doing an awesome strumming pattern midway through. From the 2-minute mark until the chorus again, I can only listen to Akane here as she's going crazy with her pedaling, outshining everyone. The only thing that really comes close to her is the final note Kanami holds before entering the second chorus, but even then, Akane is just the superstar here. The solo this time around is very short and to the point, with the riff being really nice, but I'm also consumed by Misa here with her bass line, so you get a nice double package. Either listen to Kanami or listen to Misa. Literally a win-win situation here. The obligatory Psyche appreciation time has arrived, with literally only a few strums happening every so often, so it's perfect here. Then the explosion out of her part into this ending bit is phenomenal. The slide into it followed by some hardcore pedaling, that's all I need, but we do get some awesome strumming from both Misa and Kanami just to round out the whole sound here. Miku finally gets her vocal time here during the final 30 seconds by being the main person during it, and I love it so much. Her voice fits so well with this style of music, and Psyche is really good at being the backup. That was BAND-MAID's first studio album. Every track on here was amazing for a variety of reasons, and it's 100% an album I consistently go back to. Now that they have a full studio album under their belts, the pressure to follow it up will be immense. Did they succeed in that? Well, we'll just have to find out when we get to the next album.